How are you guys? Welcome back to Wargame in China, the free channel where I platform my understandings of the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression from 1931 to 1945. And I do this mainly for wargamers, toy soldier enthusiasts, and modelers. And if you like a bit of obscure history, this is a channel for you too. So today I'm going to talk about the 1929 pattern Shanghai Arsenal armoured car. Now I'm very grateful to Chen Yai-chuan for an article he recently published on Tank Encyclopedia, which filled many grey spots that I had and gaps in my knowledge I had about this armoured car. Now, this armoured car is the first armoured car that is procured by the government forces of China. So it's the first armoured vehicle paid and bought for and procured by the Chinese government. Now, although the history of Chinese armoured trains is quite well documented, and Chinese gunboats are quite well documented, the armoured cars of China are not. And this is, I think this is the fourth one I'm going to be introducing you to. Now, when I say that this was the first armoured car procured by the government, obviously warlord forces had been procuring armoured cars, and in some cases at the Old Marshall, even FT-17 tanks. But as I said, these armoured cars in 1929, the government of China decided that it was time to build some armoured cars, and they needed them for protection of the roads in and around Shanghai and Nanjing. And they would end up serving with motor transportation companies. 4 of them would be built. 2 would serve in Shanghai and 2 would serve in Nanjing. Now, the first time that I saw this vehicle was the funeral procession. Was footage of the funeral procession of Sun Yat-sen in 1929 when they were escorting his coffin to the mausoleum just outside of Nanjing. And I didn't really see anything about it. I tried to identify it myself. And then there's a channel which I love called J-Man Time, and he did a video on a mysterious Japanese tank. He couldn't identify, and parked next to it is this 1929 pattern armoured car. So getting back to China, and so these were not the first armoured cars built in Shanghai. In 1921, the International Settlements Police Forces had commissioned 10 armoured cars to be built by the New Engineering and Shipbuilding Company of Shanghai for the Shanghai Volunteer Corps. Now, these armoured cars, although they were built on chassis, they were built on chassis imported into China, and the steel plates also were fabricated in the UK and shipped over to China, because at that time in 1921 there was nobody making armoured plate in China. However, by the time that these were commissioned in 1929, Chinese industry had moved on, and in 1929 they may have bought the armour from 3 different places: Shanghai Locomotive Works, the Wanpao Dockyard Company, and the Qiannan Dockyard could all make armoured plate. We're all making armoured plate by 1929. And if we look a bit further up the road to 1931, we'll see that the Liaoning Arsenal in Manchuria rolls out the first totally Chinese indigenous-made truck in 1931, the Minsheng. So, as we can see, between the years 1921 to 1929, the industrial capacity of China had expanded. I mean, she was still a small industrial capacity, but that's a big leap from having no place system that make steel plate, armoured steel plate, and within 9 years having 3 places that manufacture steel plate. And that was how China was progressing industrially throughout the 20s. And of course Japan was looking at this, and perhaps Japan had thought, the sooner we act on China, the better off we'll be, because she's just getting stronger every year. And and perhaps another 10 years of Chinese economic development would have seen Japan not in a position to invade China. But Japan had seen how quickly she had industrialized and modernized, and probably feared China was going to catch up. And, you know, all this, I mean, this is just conjecture on my part, but I do feel the Japanese military were looking at how China was industrializing and thought, the sooner we strike, the better. Now, as far as who would make this armoured car, the Shanghai Arsenal would make this armoured car. And the Shanghai Arsenal had been in business since 1865. And by 1929, they were mainly producing 310s medium machine guns, rifles, and 75mm mountain guns. So for the Shanghai Arsenal, this was their first crack at an armoured vehicle, an armoured car. And they didn't do a bad job. And if you look at what they built on, they got the best they could. I'm not a very good communicator, so I'll try to explain it. The Stuart Motor Corporation of Buffalo, New York, existed from 1912 to 1942, and their biggest selling line was their reliability, was their price and reliability. Their sales pitch was basically more truck for your buck. They had a very good name and reliability, and one of the things that probably appealed to the Shanghai Arsenal when they were looking for chassis to put this armoured car on was that the Stuart had solid steel Dayton wheels and solid rubber tyres around those wheels. And Stuart made trucks from the half-tonner up to the 8-tonner mark. And there's the references say that this the 1929 pattern weighed 3 tons. And if we look at the Stuart sales brochures for 1928, we can see that the 3-ton truck cost $3,600. 4x2 3-ton truck, $3,600. So it was a very appealing prospect for the Chinese to make that truck. It was probably the most suitable on the market to make into an armoured car, the Stuart Truck Company. Now, Stuart did have a good name and reliability, but they were kind of like a boss's company. They were the cars your boss bought because they were really good for the boss, low mechanical repairs, low reliability. But for drivers, they were without luxury at all. Drivers, they weren't popular with drivers, but they were popular with management because they didn't have any luxuries in a Stuart truck. So by 1929 March, the truck, these armoured cars were in service. As I said, they built 4. They were armed with 2 310s medium machine guns, because that's also was a product of the Shanghai Arsenal, and they had a crew of 6. Now, armour is difficult to calculate because it's very difficult. Even Mr. Yachuan's article doesn't really. It's not clear which of these 4 armoured cars, 2 were made out of steel and 2 were made out of iron. So the iron ones would have weighed a lot more than the steel ones, but they would have had to have been thicker to get the protection, the armour protection. So I'm not going to go into how thick the armour was or which car made out of iron served in which city, but there were 4 of them built, and 2 were built out of iron armour, and 2 were built out of steel armour. They were in service up until... It's hard to say what they're in service to. Look, Stuart guaranteed their trucks would run without any maintenance for 5 years. So we can assume that they were still on the road in 1935, but there were being complaints as early as 1930 that 2 of them were just far too heavy. So I think those ones were made of iron, and they required a replacement or reinforcement. And that led to the Shanghai Arsenal Company making 2 more armoured cars in 1930, but they're another story. These armoured cars, they didn't serve in the armoured formations of the Nationalist Army, of the NRA. They served in motor transportation companies, and they were serving under the local governments of that area. So the governor of Nanjing and the governor of Shanghai would have had these under his command. as far as the camouflage goes, look, I just had fun with it. But from photos, you can see that it seems to be a four-color scheme. But then Yai Chuan in his article says that these vehicles may have been repainted multiple times. So I just had fun with it, gave it a two-color camo scheme. Also, what Mr. Yai Chuan was telling us is that this armoured car has been misplaced in history. Because there are many photos of this, and when I read it, I went and looked in my books, and it's true that there are many pictures of this armoured car, the 1929 pattern armoured car, that are in books as the Osaka armoured car, the Japanese Osaka armoured car. Now, that's the Osaka armoured car from Shapeways. It's a little bit small, I think, but you can see how the two got confused. They got a very similar shape. And in black and white pictures, old grainy black and white pictures, I mean, they probably do look the same. Now, going back to the detailed differences, the Shanghai Arsenal armoured car, there are photos of it. There's one photo of it with this cylinder at the back having its inspection hatch open, and it appears to be like a screw device in here. And I can only surmise, and Yai Chuan lets me to believe this too, that this turret didn't revolve. The turret itself does not revolve, but the mantlet of the machine gun does. So inside of the space there is a separate mantlet shield, circular shield, and that does rotate, and I believe it is controlled by this mechanism. Then it has a machine gun at the back also, and a crew of 6, and firing ports, 2 firing ports at the rear of each side for light machine guns. Now, as I said, it has been mistaken in many books as the Osaka armoured car, so hopefully it will come out of the shadows now. Combat. Now, it would have definitely seen combat in the suppression form of suppressing communism in and around Shanghai and Nanjing. Did it see any service against the Japanese? Well, I would like to think it did, but even Chinese officers themselves are very unsure of that because of the reliability of the truck itself. Even in the 1930s, that was a huge claim Stuart were making. In the 1920s, Stuart were making that this truck would go 5 years without maintenance. And you're talking about China, where trained mechanics are very rare. Parts and understanding of mechanics are just rare. So was it still on service in 1937 against the Japanese? Who knows? But it did get to Japan. The pictures of it are beside the docks in Japan. So I would like to think it did see combat, and I probably would field it as a combative vehicle, but there's no photographic evidence or even orders of battle that support that this vehicle saw combat in Shanghai. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was worth pressing like and maybe giving me a subscribe for. That's the 70th video for this channel. We're doing well. I'll keep it up. I just wanted to ask you guys, what scale do you wargame in? That was it. That's all I wanted to ask you. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was informative. Thank you. See ya.